Enterprise Dunedin, the Dunedin City Council, and Dunedin's really thrilled to be part of the New Zealand Space Challenge, which has been initiated by our friends in Christchurch. And it's a real pleasure to have Emmeline and Eric here today from SpaceBase. They come with a huge wealth of experience and knowledge about the opportunities in space and to commercialise space products and services, and it's just a real pleasure for us to have you in Dunedin and to launch the New Zealand Space Challenge for us today. So please welcome Eric and Emmeline.
So much again. Maybe before we start, thank you for Dunedin NZ and then for Signal to actually host us here today, and thank you with the very short kind of the promotion time frame that we've actually gotten people to come. So maybe just to give you a little bit of an understanding first of what we're doing for the challenge, go backwards and talk about ourselves first, why we're here, why New Zealand, why space, and then talk about the details of the challenge in itself, the mechanics of the challenge, and then we also invited Inga Smith here from the University of Otago to talk about her experience on the ice so that the problem is actually more palpable to you. So maybe I'll just start here. Eric and I are from California. I'm originally from the Philippines, actually, so I'm still American and Filipino. And between the two of us, we've kind of worked in the space industry for too many decades. We're both old. But this year, New Zealand actually started the Edmund Hillary Fellowship Program. And this is put forward by MB. It's a program for 3 years where entrepreneurs and essentially investors come to New Zealand to work on a project that is important to New Zealand but can actually globally scale. So we applied, there's about 300 of us, they narrowed it down to 28 people. And so we're here for 3 years, hopefully for more. And our sort of like our focus for us is essentially to democratize space. And so, but let me just talk a little bit about myself more. My background is in physics and space science. There's probably like 3 categories of things that I've worked on, either working for space and technology ecosystems, educational program development and operations for International Space University and Singularity University as well. Worked on a couple of space startup companies too. And then I wrote a book like about 7 years ago on like where we think private space flight is going. Eric, you want to talk about yourself?
Okay, yeah, I started in physics, gravity theory, and then astronomy, radio astronomy, and then went into space engineering, working on the space station design for about 8 years, and also taught at International Space University, chair of the space science department there, and working most recently with a lot of space startups in Silicon Valley.
So the other passion of mine, and as I mentioned, I'm really passionate about space. When I was a kid, I grew up during the Star Wars and Star Trek era, and essentially that's sort of why I had like this path towards doing a career in space. But the second part for me is that I'm really passionate about impact. And so for the past 10 years, I've been working for Singularity University in California. I was a chief impact officer before I left. And for me, because it's so important that I had both sort of the experience of being in a developing world and then also experiencing being in Silicon Valley and having the coolest and greatest technology. I wanted to make sure that the rest of the world can actually have that opportunity as well. And so this is why we think about kind of like our moonshot is, well, we say we want to democratize space for everyone. Where what exactly does for everyone mean? It means that we don't want this, when we talk about space industry, be just for the superpowers of the world, like China and the US and Russia, but we also want other countries all around the world who can actually have that opportunity as well. And how do we do that? This is why we're here as part of the Edmund Hillary Fellowship. Our project is we actually started a company or a space enterprise called SpaceBase. We basically incorporated in New Zealand last November. And there's 3 of us. One of our colleagues is still in the US, so he's kind of like the developer, the tech guy. But for us, the focus is essentially to create or co-create this space industry. So how do you actually create a sustainable space industry when there is none? And we think that there's a holistic way of doing it, and it goes with first having education and training and essentially capacity building, to getting the ideas of entrepreneurs and helping them nurture those to become real businesses, which means that incubation and acceleration is really a big part of that. And then the last part is like how do you then help them fund those projects to make them successful. So that's sort of like the long-term goal. So our short-term goal is we have 2 MVPs. So our minimum viable product is essentially to create a New Zealand Space Directory. So we're creating a portal right now. If you go to spacebase.co, what we're trying to do is that we're trying to find the who's who in New Zealand who's actually working in space. Now, most people would say, well, there is only one company. It's Rocket Lab. But that's actually not the case, because all along that kind of like that supply chain of the space industry, you can be essentially a space company. So what we're trying to do at the moment is just like trying to find those people so that they can potentially interact and collaborate in the future. And the second one is one of the easiest way to start a community as well, or to kind of like catalyze an industry, is through incentive prizes. And this is why the New Zealand Space Challenge was born. And so incentive prizes are not new. It's been around for a while. Even a lot of the space agencies around the world has actually used it to sort of like catalyze new projects and ideas. And so NASA does like Space Apps Challenge every year. We've judged in several countries for that. There's actually another challenge or hackathon that is happening in Tech Week in May, and it's called Act in Space. So that's also going to happen in Christchurch. And this one is supported by the French Space Agency. But again, all throughout, like, in several decades, the space industry has actually had different prizes put up to help sort of like catalyze that community. And so that's sort of like what we're trying to do. So again, going back to the question of well, why space? It's not something that is inherent sort of in New Zealand, if you think about it. But within the last 5 or 10 years, Exponential Technologies have actually started democratizing access to space. What are these technologies? From robotics to biotech to nanotech, and computing basically doubling every like 18 months or 2 years. This has essentially created like a lot of opportunities where it didn't used to be available to like regular entrepreneurs. So one example is, we take for granted our cell phones. Our cell phones today, essentially, it's 120 million times much more powerful than all of the computers that was used in the Apollo era to send somebody to the moon. If you just like think about that, that's one cell phone in your pocket. And so it's a supercomputer. But it compared to all of the kind of like the billions of dollars that have been spent before, that's kind of like the big difference. Another example here, we get our weather ground sort of weather information normally from big ground stations that are, you know, almost basically millions of dollars to actually put up. And then you need a really, really big satellite in the past to get that data. But today, if you go online, you can actually buy, you know, a software-defined radio receiver. And this one, I forgot to bring it, but this one we bought for like 20 bucks, like here in New Zealand. And for essentially that and your laptop computer, you can now get the same kind of data for an unencrypted, from an unencrypted kind of weather satellite that's passing overhead. So, you know, it's definitely getting dematerialized. Another example, one of our students from Singularity University, who graduated about like 2010, he started a company, and he's from Bulgaria. So he has both actually software and hardware capabilities. Well, today you can go online in his EnduroSat store and basically you know, order the components, and within 5 days he can deliver you a full satellite. So most people today think that you know satellites are expensive, like they're hard to do. But again, I mean, this is a guy in Bulgaria, and they basically just, you know, from scratch had created and built up sort of like their capability in-house and gotten like all of their software and engineers to work on the both sides of the payload. So again, this is just basically proving that exponential technologies